Thank you. Prayers will be taken this evening by the Reverend Lisa Barrett.
So let's be quiet for a moment. In this busy festive season, we pray for those who find this season hard, for those struggling with finance, for the homeless and lonely, for those who are ill, and those who are grieving. We give thanks for our local community, those who live here and those who work here, for the things that make our community special: caring neighbourhoods, thoughtful businesses, support for the vulnerable. And we pray for the work of this council this evening, for careful words and wise decisions. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Take your seats. Okay, usual housekeeping announcements. Please note the fire exits there and there. Please make sure your mobile phones and other devices are switched to silent. The meeting is being live streamed. Please switch your microphone on when addressing the council and off when you finish speaking. In relation to all points of order, members will need to note first the rule and second the way in which it has been broken, as is required by the Constitution. This will enable me to rule accordingly. And can I remind members to talk to the point, and cabinet members to ensure the announcements are just that. Thank you. Apologies for absence. We have apologies from Councillor Martin Boffey, Peter Vandenberg, Len Ellis-Brown, John Campbell, Nigel Emery, Nick Grant, Cassia Greenwood, Warwick Halliwell, Alex Jeffrey, Richard Landau, Nicholas Marks, Sam Raby and Jonathan Taylor, and Councillor Philip Circus is running late. Oh, sorry. He's been running hard in that case. Well done, Philip. Good. Moving on to the minutes of the previous meeting. I move that the minutes of the meeting held on the 8th of October and the extraordinary meeting held on the 19th of November be approved as a correct record. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Knowles. Does anyone wish to comment on the accuracy of the minutes? I agreed that I sign them as a true and accurate record.
Agreed.
Thank you. Does any member have any interest to declare in respect of any item on tonight's agenda? No? Thank you. Announcements. I have several tonight. I have an announcement about Horsham Day, which I know is not till the 27th of January, but this is the nearest council meeting to that. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that Holocaust Memorial Day will be marked internationally on the 27th of January 2026. Each year on this day, we remember the 6 million Jewish men, women and children murdered during the Holocaust, alongside the millions of others who were murdered under Nazi persecution and all those affected by genocides that have taken place since. It is a moment for reflection, for learning, and for honouring the victims and survivors whose experience continue to shape our understanding of the consequence of hatred. Horsham District Council will once again join communities across the country in marking this important day. At a time when intolerance, prejudice and discrimination is sadly increasing in our society, it's vital that we reaffirm our commitment to standing against hatred in all forms. Holocaust Memorial Day reminds us of our shared responsibility to build a district and a world that is inclusive, compassionate and safe for everyone. And I invite all members, staff and residents to join us in marking this important day with a lantern lighting celebration at the War Memorial on the evening of Tuesday the 27th of January, Holocaust Memorial Day 2026 at 8 p.m. at the War Memorial in the Carfax. Thank you. Unfortunately, what seems to become almost customary, another former councillor died since our last full meeting. You all know that Gordon Lindsay passed away, and I would ask for a tribute from Councillor Noel to start with.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm going to hand over to Councillor Ewson to start off with.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Gordon was absolutely a well-respected councillor. He served from 2003 to 2023, so he did 20 years, the majority of which was as a cabinet member. He was a huge influence in the cabinet and indeed for the whole of Horsham District's good. He was wise and he had enormous wisdom, and he absolutely used that wisdom that he had gained in a business life beforehand. He's going to be sorely missed. He was generous to a fault, he really was, and we will all really miss him. He had no side to him at all. He was just the nicest person imaginable, and although he was a Conservative, he literally had no side. So he didn't play the game at all. He really didn't. He was super, and he'll be well missed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I think you summed up Gordon incredibly well there. Thank you. Yes, Councillor Noel.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, Gordon indeed was an absolute one-off and a real gentleman. Going to his house, you could see that he was a man of taste. His house was full of art, original art, but his taste went a lot further than that because he had one of the best wine cellars I've ever had the chance to try, and he really was a man of good taste and a man of substance. He will be missed.
Thank you, Councillor. We also have to note, as you all know, that Helen Peacock died recently. Councillor Blackburn wishes to make a statement, and then I think Councillor Potts after that.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillors, on behalf of the Council Leader and Cabinet, I would like to pay tribute to our dear friend Helen Peacock, Head of Sustainability and Green Spaces, who so very sadly died at the end of October after a short illness. Helen had a dynamic career at Horsham District Council, perhaps most especially when leading the Council's efforts to respond to climate change and enable nature recovery, as well as overseeing the careful management of the Council's almost 1,000 acres. The unique Wilder Horsham District project was conceived, implemented, and managed so successfully under Helen's careful vision, supervision, and partnership building talents, and she moved the Council and District towards greater sustainability through close collaboration with parishes and neighbourhoods, as well as the District's very many hard-working community groups. Helen also worked with landowners, official agencies, and other local authorities to support river restoration, carbon reduction, and other important local efforts for climate action. And in doing so, she built HDC's sustainability team into one that is rightly and widely admired for delivering real results. Helen's professional accomplishments list is long and includes retrofit, landscape management possibilities, and educational elements. All of it adhered to the stated objectives, principles, and practicalities of the climate action strategy, the drafting and implementation of which she oversaw, and which encompassed multiples of short and medium-term objectives and actions, while also planning for future opportunities and risks. Perhaps Helen's many achievements for climate and nature at HDC are condensed, to some extent at least, in the results of the Climate Action Scorecards published during this past summer, which ranked Horsham joint 12th best out of 164 district councils across England. She was a talented, valuable and valued member of the HDC team, as well as a most popular leader. Colleagues, we have lost a most kind, clever and good friend who achieved so much for Horsham, and I know we all send our sincere condolences to Helen's family and to her very many close friends here at HDC and elsewhere. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Potts.
Thank you, Chairman. After Colette's thoughtful tribute, I know some of what I say echoes her words, but I think that says a great deal about Helen. I had the privilege of working with Helen on and off as Deputy Cabinet Member, very briefly, and later as Shadow Cabinet Member over the course of the last 6 years. In all that time, what stood out most was not just Helen's commitment to our environment and climate, but the way she carried herself through it. Helen was endlessly convivial. She had that rare ability to make any room feel lighter simply by being in it. She listened, she reassured, she encouraged. She explained complex issues with clarity and kindness, always important with me in the room. And she always took the time to consider other views. She worked incredibly hard, not for recognition, but because she genuinely wanted to make a difference for this district and for future generations. What I will remember most is her positivity, her generosity of spirit, and that ready laugh that made even the toughest days feel manageable. She went out of her way to help people, and it was always a pleasure to be around her. Helen made a real mark, quietly, thoughtfully, and with real heart. She will be deeply missed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Noel.
There's not a lot I can add to this, Chairman. I was very briefly a Cabinet Member under her guidance, and her leadership was absolutely astounding. We will never have such environmental inspiration in the history of HDC again, and she will be sadly missed by all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Sorry, Mr. Croker. Councillor Croker, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say a few words from the Green Group. Helen's interaction with our members were always supportive and professional, and her experience, guidance will be sorely missed by all the group. That, I think, says it all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. We've got one other tribute. Jack Dark, who was a pathfinder in the Second War and one of the few remaining veterans, and also a former officer of Horsham Rural District Council many years ago, recently died, and I call on Clive Trott as Armed Forces Champion to give a tribute.
Thank you, Chair. Flight Lieutenant Jack Dark was one of Horsham District's few remaining World War II veterans, and news of his passing has been universally greeted with great sadness. Jack led a fascinating life of bravery and service, a life which should be celebrated and honoured. He held the distinction of being the last of the Pathfinders, as it is believed he was the last surviving member of the RAF's 83 Squadron Pathfinder Force. During World War II, the RAF pioneered methods for increasing bombing accuracy by sending out a small force of selected bomber crews ahead of the main force to mark targets with flares. This elite force became known as the Pathfinders. Navigation, using the latest technology available at the time, was key to the success of their missions, and Jack, as the navigator of one of the Pathfinder Lancaster bomber crews, was vital to achieving their objectives. He flew 28 successful missions against Nazi Germany between 1943 and 1945, attacking industrial and military targets across the country, as well as bombing capital ships of the Kriegsmarine. Jack was a Horsham man through and through, a lifelong resident of Mannings Heath, a passionate member of the Nuthurst Cricket Club, an employee with 45 years' service of Horsham Council, from which he retired in 1968 as a financial planning officer. His passing this week at the age of 102 has left a hole locally. He was a pillar of the Horsham community and well loved by local residents. He will be missed by all those who knew him, and our thoughts must remain with Jack's family and friends at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Moving on to, well, the leader's not here. Deputy Leader, any announcements? No. Good, okay. Cabinet members, Councillor Fletcher, local plan.
Members will recall that last month we wrote to Luke Fleming, the examiner of our emerging local plan, outlining the changing circumstances since the initial hearings that were heard in December 24 and requesting that he reopen them to allow the plan to progress. We've since been waiting for his reply. Meanwhile, at the end of last week, the government published draft guidance that will accompany the new local plan legislation, which is due to be enacted early in 2026. The publication of this guidance is much welcomed, as it will allow the Council to understand the implications for the preparation of any future local plan for the district sooner rather than later. As part of this announcement, the government has also stated that the transitional arrangements between the current and future local plan regimes will no longer, they've decided that as part of the transitional arrangements between the current and future local plan regimes, they have decided not to save the duty to cooperate within the current system. This is a very significant change. It removes the reason for which our local plan inspector halted the hearings for our emerging local plan. So, following this announcement, I'm pleased to say that the Council has now received a formal response from the local plan inspector to the Council's letter. In his reply, the inspector agrees with us that there have been significant changes affecting the local plan examination, and he welcomes the Council's willingness to support amendments to the draft plan. To explore the implications of this in more detail, the inspector has offered an exploratory meeting expected to take place in February 2026. The Council is in the process of finalising its response to the inspector, but are minded to proceed with this exploratory meeting. At this stage, we do not have full clarity of the precise format of any such meeting, but further updates will be provided, including on the local examination pages of our website, as soon as we know more.
Thank you, Councillor. That sounds like good news. I hope it continues to be good news. Okay, we don't have any Chief Executive announcement. We don't have any questions from the public. So we move on to recommendations from the Cabinet on the second workshop for service food waste vehicles. And I call on Councillor Mercer to move this.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm speaking on behalf of my colleague from the Cabinet, Councillor Jonathan Taylor, who isn't able to be here tonight. Good evening. Approval was given in the November Cabinet meeting for the conversion of the old ambulance station to a workshop to service food waste vehicles. I should stress that is the smaller 12-tonne vehicles, not the larger refuse vehicles. This is part, of course, of the statutory requirement which was mandated by government to establish domestic food waste collection in Horsham district. To convert the building into a workshop is estimated to cost £488,000. This includes initial repair works to the roof, the integration of energy efficient lighting and heating to the building, as well as more specific items such as a vehicle inspection pit, a drainage interceptor and workshop equipment. Prior to determining those costs, other options were reviewed, including to provide a workshop in alternative locations, along with investigating the potential of outsourcing the vehicle servicing. All of the options do not give the availability or immediacy that is available in creating a workshop in the old ambulance station by the time it's required in early 2026. Whilst instigating the service will increase carbon emissions by about 58 CO2 tonnes a year from our waste collections, there will be an overall carbon saving from processing the food waste through the anaerobic digester plant that the county runs. Over the whole process, we anticipate the saving will be a net additional 334 tonnes of CO2 compared to our current collection and disposal model. We are awaiting, and once the service is running, we will have much more detailed data from the County Council about their end of that process. To assist with establishing the food waste programme, DEFRA have funding available, and an application towards these costs of creating the workshop is underway and will be applied to this project if successful. A planning application has also been submitted for a change of use back to a workshop from the current use. I would remind everybody that the previous use of this building was as an ambulance station, with ambulances going in and out and workshop work being done there. If the recommendations are approved by the council, the building works will be procured as soon as possible, so the facility will be ready for the service launch. And Cabinet therefore recommended to council, 1, to approve a capital budget of up to £488,000 for the 25-26 financial year for the conversion of the premises and the acquisition and installation of the required equipment to be funded from the food waste earmarked reserve initially, and 2, to approve a revenue budget of £17,585 for the 25-26 financial year to cover the running costs of the workshop and the loss of income from the tenant for the last quarter of the financial year, and this to be funded from the food waste earmarked reserve. And I recommend this to you.
Thank you, Councillor. Do you have a seconder?
Yes, I second.
Councillor Skipp, do you wish to speak now or later?
I'll speak later.
Thank you. Okay, I will now throw the floor open to debate. Councillor Circus.
Thank you, Chairman. 2 points. First of all, I wonder whether the Cabinet member has any comment to make on the failure to reach an agreement with West Sussex County Council that would have enabled us to make use of part of the land, surplus land or spare land, that appears to be available at the Hoppost tip. I mean, we have to bear in mind that after April 28, both the tip and the depot will be in common ownership. And I would have thought we could start to think in a more coherent and collective way about these things, because without any doubt, Chairman, to consolidate all these facilities on the one site would be the most ideal situation. So I don't know. Apparently, I'm told that county says that the spare land there is needed for other purposes, but we don't know what those other purposes are. So I don't know whether the Cabinet member has a view. Can I just say that as far as some members are concerned, I know that these are 12-ton lorries, so they are much smaller than the regular. But there was concern that this is a part of Hurst Road that gets very congested, and there was concern about the effect of this in terms of creating a blockage at that difficult end of Hurst Road. And I wonder whether he would agree to having a review of these arrangements after a period, 6 months or a year, to see whether in practice they have given rise to any problems. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Mercer, do you wish to answer those questions?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And Councillor Serkis will know that the original hope was that we would be able to reach agreement with the county for what seemed to be a relatively straightforward and simple arrangement to further share the site. Unfortunately, that wasn't possible. I wasn't involved in those negotiations, so I'm not in a position to comment on how why that was. Of course, during the period of those discussions, we had not yet heard about the certainty of local government reorganisation, or that it was as nearly on the horizon as we now know it was. We can all speculate about what might happen in the future. At the end of the day, we do have a statutory responsibility to deliver the food waste collection, and to, in order to do that, the key thing is having immediate availability of spare capacity of vehicles when vehicles either break down or need to go for maintenance. So I'm not going to get into the what ifs, because we are where we are, but this is a critical facility for us. Now, the issue about the lorries, I do want to, whilst Hurst Road is of course a busy road, it has many facilities on it as well as residential residents. These are, as I said, the smaller lorries. They are actually ½ a metre less wide than the larger refuse lorries. There are, of course, buses that run along that road. So it is a different situation from what might have been perceived when people were thinking that these were the larger refuse lorries. I think inevitably these arrangements will be under review, because they'll be under review as part of the progress going into unitarisation. So I'm not going to make a specific commitment to a review after a particular time, but my expectation is that they will be inevitably reviewed, and that, you know, whoever is in leading from the new unitary will make their own decisions about that.
Thank you. Any other councillors? Okay. Councillor Skip, do you wish to exercise your rights?
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. I must emphasise this has not been a decision which hasn't been carefully scrutinised and looked at both by colleagues and also other councillors, and scrutiny, and also by the Cabinet. You heard the statement that has been made and the answers that have been given. I think that we have a responsibility. We are in a situation where we need to progress, and we are looking to reduce our carbon footprint, and I think this is with the food waste one way. So I would urge other councillors to vote for this recommendation, and I wholeheartedly support it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Mercer, do you wish to make some closing comments? Right, okay. I can now put this to the vote. All those in favour of approving the recommendations, please show. Any against? Any abstentions? One. Thank you. That's clearly passed. Moving on to the Council Tax Reduction Scheme for 2026-2027. I hand over to Mark Bayman to move this piece of business.
Thank you very much, Chairman. We have in operation a council tax reduction scheme, but it's one that we need to reapprove each year. Now, last year we did change the scheme in that we increased the maximum level of support of council tax relief to 100% from what was previously 90%. We also extended the range to include Band E properties. The only change that I would recommend tonight is to apply a standard deduction of £4.90 plus inflation adjustment for non-dependents. This simplifies the process, and it doesn't mean any loss to those people affected. The scheme benefits currently 5,382 households in the district, with a ratio of working age to pension of roughly 3 to 2. And the cost of the scheme, in terms of loss of council tax receipts, is borne by each of the preceptors for the council tax in proportion to the amount that they receive. So thus, where Sussex pays the most, followed by the police, then us, and then the parishes. We were elected on a position of helping some of the poorest and the most financially challenged people in the district, and this is one measure that really does provide that support. Last time it went through, I believe, unanimously, and I'm hoping that it will do the same again tonight. So I very much support this, and I would recommend that there are no changes to the existing scheme other than those agreed by Council on 2024, 11th of December, which was around the £4.90. And that any changes that are required by law, if they come in, are delegated to the Director of Resources in consultation with myself to make any changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Blackburn, do you wish to speak now or later?
I'll speak later if necessary.
Okay, I can. Councillor Circus.
The purpose, as it's stated in the papers, is that the council tax reduction scheme is designed to provide financial support for people on low incomes. I wonder whether Councillor Bainham would comment on whether he feels there might be a scope to review this situation in the light of what I will call the recent Chancellor's welfare budget, which will have significantly, in some cases, affected the income of people on low incomes, and therefore might have a relevance to the purpose for which this provision applies. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Bain, do you wish to just on now?
I'll just wait to the end if I may.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other? Okay. I invite Councillor Blackburn as seconder to speak.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to quickly say that I wholeheartedly support this item. There can hardly be a more accurate reflection of society's character than its response to those in their midst who are finding life difficult. This measure to offer support in this way certainly mirrors the society we are lucky enough to be part of here in Horsham, and of which we can be both proud and grateful. I just thought, as it's approaching Christmas, one example of the big-hearted willingness to help that exists here, I would like to thank a local beer producer, Brolly Brewing, which spent Monday evening preparing care packages for Horsham families as their version of a Christmas party. So thank you to Holly and the team at Brolly, and thank you to Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bain, do you wish to respond to Councillor Circus and sum up?
Yes, I will. So the existing scheme that we have is a 100% maximum scheme. But it's a discretionary. It's means tested. Now, I haven't got the full figures here, but my sort of back of an envelope calculations are that the average recipient gets about 75% of the maximum. Now, if their circumstances have changed because of any measures that have happened in the budget, or indeed if they've improved, because it could have happened both ways, depending on whether they have receipt of child benefit, for example. Then that would be accounted for in the means testing, and if they'd lost out, then their relief would rise appropriately. So I don't see a need to actually revise the scheme at this stage. But just in summary, it's, as I said, it's something that helps those people who are in the neediest situations. It's something that we stand for as a council to help. And so I thoroughly recommend those recommendations which I've previously read out. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, Councillor. I now put this to the vote. All those in favour of approving the recommendations on pages 25 to 28, please show. Thank you. Thank you. Any against? No abstentions? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Right, we now move on to reports from representatives. Councillor Belinda Waters.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a quick update from the Health and Adult Social Care Scrutiny Committee that I attend on behalf of Horsham District Council, along with my colleagues from other district councils across the district and across the county. This committee, this last meeting, we were talking about the Sussex Winter Plan, which was mainly based on the coastal hospitals, but I have asked to see site of the SASH Winter Plan. We also looked at a call-in, which was to close a dementia care home in Worthing, which you might have seen that on BBC South. The committee decided to go with, to support the cabinet member in the closure of the home, which is really sad. We looked at the performance and resources report, we looked at the medium-term financial strategy, and we looked at the Care Quality Commission assurance outcome and continuous improvement for the adult services within the realms of West Sussex County Council. I'd bring it to your attention because if anybody's interested, you can watch the committee. It's online and you can access it through the West Sussex County Council website. You just need to put in HASC and it will come up and there's a link. One of the notable things that did come up was the fact that they're projecting a £12 million overspend in adult services to the end of this financial year, which is huge. 4 million overspend is literally just been incurred since June. So there's a massive need within the county for adult social services. The other thing I was going to mention was the core plan. We're looking at mental health in January, and we're also looking at Crawley Urgent Treatment Centre and its opening hours in January. So if anybody has any interest in that, you're welcome to watch at the time, or obviously go online and watch the committee after the event. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Move on to members' question on notice. And the first question is from Councillor Serkis.
Thank you, Chairman. Given that the Council passed a motion declaring a climate emergency, does the Cabinet member feel that the widespread use of lights throughout Albury House in rooms not in use demonstrates a failure to achieve energy economy and is therefore inconsistent with the declaration passed by Council? Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Blackman.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Serkis. We do remain concerned about the climate emergency, And aligned with this, we have a series of lighting controls installed at Aubrey House. The lights are controlled by a motion sensor system, which is on a timer every 30 minutes of movement in a room. The exceptions to this are 2 meeting rooms, which are currently being connected to sensor controls, and the main navigation corridor, which stays illuminated for a longer period so that people can move out of the building safely, such as when carrying out cleaning tasks or security checks after hours. All the lights are LED and therefore have a reduced load and carbon footprint. Being the first year of occupation, the property and facilities team are fine-tuning the building's operation and would welcome detail on any observations that you've come across. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Circus, do you wish to respond?
Yes, I wonder whether the Cabinet member would comment on the public impression that is created when they see the whole of the building lit up like the Crystal Palace. I was here one afternoon and there seemed to be very little, that's the reason I asked the question actually, Chairman. There seemed to be very little going on. A lot of the meeting rooms were empty, but the lights were full on throughout the building. And I wonder whether the Cabinet member shares with me the concern that this creates a very bad impression, a very negative impression with the public, who may well feel that we say one thing as a council, but do something else, or at least do not live up to the declarations that we have made.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Backman.
Thank you, Councillor Circus. Well, I refer you to my previous answer. If the building was all lit up one afternoon, it might be due to that time. It is this time of year where lights really are necessary from quite early in the day. And as I said, there are motion sensors. So if there's 30 minutes of non-movement in a room, the lights are extinguished. So,
Councillor Circus, do you wish to make a statement?
Yes, I do. I was slightly puzzled. I looked at the dictionary definition of an emergency, and I read this, the interpretation of the word: a serious, unexpected and often dangerous situation requiring immediate action. But the Cabinet member said, oh, well, we do remain concerned. Those words don't seem to link up with the idea of a dangerous situation requiring immediate action. The problem I have, when I was first a councillor, and I know Jay Mercer will remember this, it was common for local authorities, particularly London boroughs, to declare motions in favour of all sorts of things. We had a nuclear-free zone. We had condemnatory motions about South Africa. This was pretty normal fare in local authorities back in the day. And I don't want to see this council passing motions that the public do not think we're serious about. Since James Brooks is here tonight, he and I love banding about quotations. So I was going to use a quotation that is quite a favourite of mine from Macbeth. When Macbeth learnt of the death of Lady Macbeth, he talked about life being a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. And I hope that when we pass motions, they are not full of sound and fury signifying nothing, but they mean something and we take them seriously. And I think there's a danger, certainly on this example I gave of the lighting here at Aubrey House, that the public may well think we pass these motions, but we don't actually take them seriously. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. I move on to the second question on notice, which is from Councillor Mike Croker.
Thank you, Chair. Members will be relieved that I won't be talking about nuclear-free zones or Macbeth, being a relatively simple soul. My experience as a councillor for the last 6 years has led me to believe that once residents accept the inevitability of any new development, their primary concern is that the conditions associated with that development are adhered to. Planning Committee members here tonight will be very familiar with the well-used phrases pre-commencement condition, pre-commencement slab level condition, pre-occupation, etc. Whilst it might be considered unreasonable to expect officers to monitor all conditions all of the time for all sites, given the number of approvals this council grants, it is nevertheless an area on which this council is judged. Hence, I wish to ask the Cabinet member if she would consider implementing an accessible public database containing a matrix of live approvals, i.e. those with outstanding conditions, hyperlinked to the original approvals. This would aid officers in keeping track of progress, but also enable residents to carry out valuable on-the-ground audits of what has been reported by the developer stroke builder as complete. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Fletcher.
Thank you, Councillor Croker, for your interesting question. HDC is rightly proud of its planning enforcement function, something which not all local authorities are able to provide. We do recognise how valuable planning enforcement is, both to residents directly affected by specific developments and more widely as a deterrent, ensuring developers know that they are liable to be held accountable for any breaches of the agreed conditions. Alleged breaches of planning conditions can be reported to the Council's compliance team for investigation by councillors, members of the public and other interested parties. For anyone who's not familiar with this, you can report a breach of planning conditions on the HDC website. Go to the report page and scroll down to the planning section. This is the general approach to enforcement as set out within our local enforcement plan. However, unlike many councils, we do also have some resource which we use to actively monitor conditions, and this also generates enforcement investigations where a potential breach is identified. The Council aims to be always listening, learning and improving, and our team are actively looking at ways to further improve the planning compliance function. We have recently sought feedback from parishes and are looking to see if there is anything we can improve on. Regarding your question, officers have considered it carefully, along with your follow-up email. At present, there is not a way of automatically publishing and reporting this data in a different format. In terms of the follow-up email, constraints and conditions are different data sets. Your request would require an update to our IT software, which is provided by a third party. We can explore this upgrade, but I understand that our software provider prioritises suggestions which have widespread support or are a statutory requirement. So unfortunately, there is no certainty that this would be developed. Given that we've imposed over 8,000 conditions in the last 12 months, it would not be practical to manually create a searchable database. However, if members would find it helpful to have some information on how to best use the public portal, we can certainly provide that. Thank you.
Councillor Croker, do you wish to add a supplementary question?
Yes, I do, if I may. Well, I'd like to thank the Cabinet member for that quite extensive reply, and I'm pleased to hear that that things are possibly moving forward a little bit. I appreciate the amount of data that this might generate, and was wondering whether, in fact, a reduced data set, just looking at
pre-commencement conditions were to be included, that might ease the task somewhat. And I'll leave that there as a suggestion, but we'll be interested in an instant response. Thank you.
Councillor Fletcher.
I obviously not in a position to answer that immediately. However, given that the officers have said that they are happy to explore whether it's possible to have, or ask the provider whether it's possible to have an IT upgrade, I'll leave it to them to bear in mind that as one potential way through, should it not be possible to do the whole thing.
Thank you. Councillor Croker, do you wish to make a statement?
Yes, please, Chair. Thank you for that further response. And if I have to say anything, it's do read the local enforcement plan, which I must admit had somewhat escaped me till tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. We move to the third question from Councillor Emma Beard.
Thank you, and moving away on a slightly different tact. Horsham District Council's pension fund, which is managed by West Sussex County Council and which joined the Border to Coast Pension Partnership in September 2025, is pursuing net zero by 2050, but continues to invest in fossil fuel firms like BP and Glencore, as well as arms companies such as BAE Systems and Airbus. Given that HDC declared a climate ecological emergency in 2023, how, as a council, can we ensure that we move more swiftly away from supporting, whether directly or indirectly, climate and ecological damaging industries, and move towards ethical investments, putting our residents and the planet first for the benefit of all?
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bainham, you wish to respond?
Thank you very much for that question. As ever, a fairly simple question, but always means a fairly complex answer, I'm afraid. Now, the pension bill, which currently goes through Parliament, will require that by March 2026, all local authority pension funds are pooled with other authorities into larger funds managed by regulated investment management companies under the oversight of the Financial Conduct Authority. Border to Coast is one such company, and the decision to join that pool, which covers nearly 1 million local authority and next local authority staff, preempts that requirement. It's worth saying at this point, I think, that it's a fiduciary and legal requirement for fund managers to act in the best financial interests of the fund's members in making investment decisions. Having said that, Border to Coast have a published policy and accompanying roadmap to achieve net zero emissions by 2050 or sooner. Now, this administration, we take our responsibilities on climate change very seriously, and I can say the same to Councillor Circus. And the BTC approach does align reasonably well with this, BTC, Border to Coast. They are actively working to reduce their exposure to fossil fuel companies and have, according to past published reports, made significant progress in that regard. But it should also be said that the pension fund and the council are not the same thing. Even though the council runs the local government pension scheme for its staff, the pension fund is legally separate from the council's day-to-day finances and policies. So, a local authority's declaration of a climate emergency does not require or legally obligate pension fund trustees to divest from fossil fuels. In terms of the oil-producing companies, the Border to Coast policy is one of engagement rather than total divestment, using its financial weight to hopefully influence the progress of these companies to net zero. So looking back on the last BP, so you mentioned BP, AGM, for example, Border to Coast were part of the 25% of shareholders who voted against the BP's board's recommendations on remunerations as a protest against a perceived slowing down of the company's net zero commitments. Such engagement and resulting influence will continue, and BTC will monitor their progress, However, we will also, additionally, following your question to me tonight, write to the West Sussex Pension Fund to get an update report on their progress, i.e. the pension fund's progress, on reducing investment and the future timelines. And we will circulate their response to all councillors. Border to Coast have also published a responsible investment policy which precludes holdings in arms manufacturers involved in the production of specified munitions such as landmines, cluster bombs and anything chemical or biological. The aerospace companies that you quote don't fall into that category and abide by the arms export regulations set by the government at national level, which I think is the place where such regulation should be set. So to summarise, we are working, we take this seriously. We're working in a pension fund that is also taking it seriously, and we have our targets, they have their targets that would need to be fitting with ours. So we are taking action.
Councillor Beard, do you wish to ask a supplementary?
I believe that you've answered my supplementary question that I had to say. So thank you.
I'm curious to know what it was.
I like it. The question was, would this council commit to writing to West Sussex County Council asking for a timetable of divestment with a switch to 100% ethical investments and a commitment to have completed this within the next 10 years, which I know is a huge timescale, but you are in the phase of writing to them, so I appreciate that.
Can obviously read your mind.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I'm guessing no supplementary statement.
I have a statement, please.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. So I want to take this opportunity to speak from the heart in a world that is sadly where the mind dominates. And there is no room for nature beyond us, and society has been consumed and separated, and that my heart breaks. However, there is so much to be grateful for, and Councillor Bainham, I'm really grateful for you to be able to hear what I've said tonight and answer towards my question. And I'm grateful that I'm in a position that I can speak louder than most. I'm grateful for every delicate balance of our ecosystem, climate, relationship with each other and the more than human world. And I'm grateful for all the work that goes into the tending of our planet globally. This balance, though, is being tilted, and I want to do what I can to help ensure that our world, for all the species, including us, can thrive and benefit from the interconnectivity for our generation and all those yet to follow. I truly believe that we all have a place to make this change. The decisions and influences that we have can have impacting result. With divesting from companies that negatively impact our world and relationships and move towards ethical finances, we can use our influence to help tend the planet that we live on. Every seed that is planted by jay, squirrel or human can grow into a forest. Every smile, handshake or policy can be a ripple that grows and spreads and brings connection and peace. May we be that voice that sparks a ripple of positive movement. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Right. There's no urgent business, so that concludes our meeting at 1 minute to